Since last night's press statement, which I made, the Chief Medical Officer has confirmed the presence of one more case out of 33 persons who had been tested of COVID-19 in Barbados. This now brings our total number of cases to 46. Our observations thus far continue to be that there are large groups of persons congregating across the island, even in spite of the persistent warnings of the dangers of so doing. As we continue our discussions with our stakeholders, the members of the Cabinet Subcommittee in respect of COVID-19 met this morning with the owners of a number of supermarkets, gas stations, and bakeries across the island. Amongst the concerns expressed at that meeting unanimously by those present are that even up to this morning, a large number of persons continue to congregate, in particular outside these supermarkets. I have discussed the matter with the Chief Medical Officer as well as the Minister of Health and Wellness, and they are both of the view that we cannot further delay the closure of supermarkets and mini-marts across the island based on the current trends. To do otherwise will have deleterious effects on the well-being of our citizens. Therefore, for the avoidance of any doubt, the curfew which we impose on this country is a 24-hour curfew, unless there is legitimate business which will require you to leave your home and to be on the road. You can only be on the road to go to the pharmacy, to seek medical assistance, or if you are part of the essential services, or if you are doing business with any of the businesses which are exempted under this order. Therefore, as of 5 p.m. tomorrow, Friday the 3rd of April, all supermarkets and mini-marts shall remain closed until further notice. We are in discussions with supermarket owners to see how we can certainly be able to provide through electronic commerce, as well as perhaps a staggering of allowing persons across the country to be able to access the services, particularly the most vulnerable in that category, to allow them to be able to fulfill specific grocery orders. And those discussions are ongoing, and we will continue to update the country as it relates to that. I want to reiterate that all restaurants should remain closed until midnight on the 14th of April 2020. Again, the sale of alcoholic beverages will also be prohibited for the duration of this period. Automarts at gas stations will only be open for the sale of top-ups, but I want to make the point that gas stations will remain open because we recognize that a number of the essential service providers will obviously have to move around the country, and they will obviously be at the center of being able to utilize the service. Obviously, if persons are going to the doctor or they're making their way back home as a result of the top-up, obviously that will be permissible at this point in time. The sale of bread from bakeries and bread depots will also remain in place in terms of them persons being able to purchase from those bakeries and bread depots. Again, culturally, we also recognize that there's a large percentage of persons that from day to day will often visit the bread shops. They may not have the disposable income as some in the country to be able to stock up on large quantities of food. And we want at this point to be able to allow them to be able to maintain their presence purchasing those items. I want to also reiterate that all government departments will remain closed unless otherwise specified by the head of the civil service. The head of the civil service will send out a memo to all ministries indicating who will be required to come to work. And that relationship obviously will be further clarified with the permanent secretaries of the respective government departments. I want to give the country the assurance that this government will continue to monitor the situation. As I would have said last night, this is a very fluid situation, and we continue to be in discussions with our stakeholders. But there will be further COVID directives over the course, no doubt, of the next few days, and certainly during this period, as we continue as a government to work with its respective stakeholders to monitor the situation and to do right by the people of Barbados. I thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I believe that most Barbadians will be reflecting seriously on these additional restrictions that have been placed on them. But let me say that no restrictions are going to be affected unless they're effectively policed. And I want to say to Barbadians that the police and all of our civil authorities are fully behind these measures and will not be leaving anything to chance. It's not just a question of heightened presence. I want to assure you that these restrictions are going to be taken very seriously and that individuals will be charged by the Royal Barbados Police Force if they continue to fly in the face of the law. Over the last few days, even though we had said construction was to end, we found that a number of people were continuing to work on houses, and we've actually had to send out police officers to shut those projects down. And we've warned them in very strong terms that if they continue to try to do any of that kind of work, they're going to be arrested. Um, there's too much at stake, and it is important that Barbadians recognize that the time has now come when the government has to not only impose strong strictures, but also to impose a strong enforcement mechanism. Already you know that one person has been charged for breaking curfew. I understand that other individuals have been held by the police. And so I think you can expect that if reckless behavior continues, the response of the Royal Barbados Police Force will be commensurate.
Brakata Yahweh Yahushai, Brakata Yahweh Yahushai, Brakata Yahweh Yahushai, Brakata Yahweh Yahushai, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Wa Barak, Wa Rapah, Wa Kazak, to the apostles, elders, and the brethren throughout the four corners, I say Shalom. And this is a serious time that we're in. And what's going on right now? Right now, it's 1:24 a.m. Sunday morning. And as of yesterday, which was Saturday, April 4th, this is a article from what's called The Loop. This is a Caribbean news report and breaking news. It says here COVID-19 24-hour curfew announced in Barbados. So COVID-19, Barbados records 46 cases and implements 24-hour curfew. Now, this 24-hour curfew is going to last for 2 weeks, for 14 days. Now, they implemented it. I'm going to read down on it here. I'm going to read down here. It says curfew changes because they had a curfew already implemented, but the people wasn't respecting it. So now they're taking more drastic measures. And this is going to come here to the United States. Okay, because this is the U.S. Virgin Islands. The U.S. has jurisdiction over Barbados. It's part of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Okay, so this afternoon, Acting Prime Minister Sunita Bradshaw announced a 24-hour curfew will be in effect from Friday, April 3rd at 5 p.m. as the island's number of COVID-19 cases has increased to 46 from 45. One more case was reported out of 33 persons that were tested since yesterday's update. Bradshaw said that persons' insistence on ignoring the call to practice social distancing has led to more stringent restrictions. So they set it up where, like over here, where they allow people to police themselves with the social distancing, but people are not obeying it. People are just gathering, going to the beaches like here, like people, like the kids that are home that would normally be at school, they're home. They're going to the beaches and walking along the beaches and sitting out there having parties. You got niggas on the basketball court, balling on the basketball courts, all kinds of stuff going on. So what's going to happen is they giving you the opportunity to do it yourself. Now what they're going to do is they're going to force you to do it. Now this is happening in the islands, in the Caribbean, but it's going to come here to America. It could be sometime this week. It could be maybe next week or the week after. But eventually, the COVID-19 cases are going to keep rising, and it's going to be a total lockdown. But I'm going to read about the islands as this is. I'm not going to try to make this too long. I'm just going to try to hit to the point. So this person right here is the Prime Minister, Sunita Bradshaw. You see here in the picture. At the beginning of the video, you heard her press statement and she was going through it. But let me just read through some of this article. Our observations thus far continue to be that there are large groups of persons congregating across the island, even in spite of the persistent warnings of the dangers of doing so, said Bradshaw during a live press conference. Therefore, she declared that supermarkets and mini marts will be closed with effect from Friday, April 3rd at 5 p.m. until further notice. Persons are allowed to be on the roads only, to go to the pharmacy, to seek medical assistance if they are part of essential services, meaning you're part of fire department, ambulance, or the police. Uh, if they are doing business with any of the exempted businesses, it says the members of the cabinet subcommittee with respect to COVID-19 met this morning with the owners of a number of supermarkets, gas stations, and bakeries across the island, and amongst the concerns expressed at the meeting by those present are that even up to this morning, large numbers of persons continue to congregate outside the supermarkets. We cannot further delay the closure of supermarkets and mini marts across the island. To do otherwise will have deleterious effects on the well being of our citizens, Bradshaw said. Government is in discussions with supermarket owners on e commerce options and allowing the most vulnerable members of society to fulfill their grocery orders. So the most vulnerable members would be old people. So they're in talks with the supermarkets to try to set something up where they'll probably have the elderly people place an order. The order will be filled, and they'll probably maybe have somebody drop it off to their house, or maybe allow them. A lot of people don't have the transportation like this, so more likely they're probably going to have somebody bring it to them, and they pay for it electronically. Okay. It says village shops will remain open, but no more than 3 persons can congregate at a time, and no alcoholic beverages can be sold. So, ain't no liquor going to be sold during this uh, 24-hour lockdown shutdown. And basically, let me read on. It says, we are asking the village shop owners that they simply provide the necessary dispatch of groceries to persons living in those communities, but to curtail and ensure that they restrict persons congregating to persons no more than 3, and also that no alcoholic beverages are sold. All restaurants should be closed until midnight, April 14th, 2020. So basically, effective, like it said here, effective April 3rd at 5 p.m., right, which was basically Friday night at 5 p.m. in Barbados. They're on a 24-hour lockdown until April 14th, officially. And the supermarkets are supposed to be closed, and they're working out something where only for, basically it's going to be the elderly that they're going to work out a type of thing where they probably bring them food to them. So I'm going to put the link to this in the description box if I'm not trying to make this too long, like I said. But there's some other stuff I want to touch on. Now I want to read a scripture here in Ecclesiasticus, or the book of Ben Surah, 5:15. It says, "Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small." So that's the reason why I'm going in this. And the thing is, you still think that we're conspiracy theorists? Now, also in another island earlier in the week, before Barbados went on a 24-hour lockdown, the islands of Antigua and Barbuda. Um, the islands of Antigua and Barbuda, which are which is uh, which is located close to Saint Bart's and Montserrat. These are 2 separate islands. Antigua and Barbuda are 2 separate islands, and they're close to Saint Bart's and Montserrat. Barbados itself is close to Saint Lucia, Saint Vincent, in the area of Saint Lucia, Saint Vincent, and Grenada. But now Antigua, earlier in the week, before Barbados did its 24-hour lockdown, which that started Friday, which was the third, Antigua's prime minister announced his 24-hour lockdown. And let me see, it says St. John's prime minister Gaston Brown Tuesday, right? Tuesday was, I believe, Thursday was the third. Wednesday was the second. So Tuesday had to be the first, I believe. Yeah. Let me just double check here. No, Wednesday was the first. Friday was the third. Thursday the second. Wednesday was the first. All right. Wednesday was the first. But this was announced on Tuesday. On Tuesday, the Prime Minister Gaston Brown Tuesday announced a 24-hour curfew for the next 7 days. So they imposed a 24-hour curfew for 7 days, beginning on Thursday. After berating the people of Antigua and Barbuda, those two islands, the island of Antigua and Barbuda, of not taking seriously the threats posted by the coronavirus that has killed more than 30,000 people worldwide since last December. Brown, who sought preliminary approval for the state of emergency that was announced over the last weekend, said the state of emergency will remain in effect for the next 60 days but could be extended if the virus continues to exist. He told legislators that he was disappointed that many people had, despite the 10-hour curfew, because see, they were on a 10-hour curfew beforehand, before they went to a 24-hour curfew for 7 days. They were on a 10-hour curfew in those two islands, Antigua and Barbuda. It's announced last week we're continuing to congregate, go on the beach, uh, times as well as gather at various places, dismissing the social distancing measures to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Guess what? People here in the U.S. is doing the same damn thing, gathering at the beaches. People, niggas at the basketball court playing basketball. Um, you got niggas that are riding four wheelers and dirt bikes in groups, and they just riding through the streets, going to the park, riding through the park. Yo, Esau is giving you the ability to do it, to do the social distancing yourself, but people ain't paying attention to it. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna make you do it. So they doing it. This is happening in the islands, and you damn right it's gonna come here to the mainland, to America itself, the mainland itself. As a consequence, the cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda has agreed to extend the curfew from 10 hours a day to 24 hours a day for the next 7 days. He said, adding that it will come into effect 1 second after midnight on Thursday morning. It means, therefore, that no one will be allowed to be on the streets of Antigua or Barbuda unless that person is an essential worker, he said, adding that only two individuals are permitted to be on the streets at any given time to go shopping or to get fuel. We will give further details on the policy as to exactly who could move, but in essence, it gives a lockdown, and we are asking people to stay at home in order to contain the spread of the virus. So this is in the islands of Antigua and Barbuda, and this was actually before Barbados went on their 24-hour lockdown. But Barbados is doing it up until the 14th of April. Their lockdown is to the 14th of April. Okay, they're doing, Antigua and Barbuda are doing a 7-day lockdown, 7-day, 24-hour lockdown. Now, also, there's, and again, you still think that we're conspiracy theorists? You still think that we're crazy? You still calling us fear mongers? Let me tell you something. This is coming here to the mainland, to the United States. All right, they're gonna announce it, and they might not even give you any time to go out there and stock up. They might just be in such a panic that that they might just say, listen, as of right now, we're just in a few hours, we're gonna make it where 24 hours you got to stay in the house. Grocery stores are closed, liquor stores are closed. You better not be on the streets unless you're an essential worker, and that's gonna be that. And totally lock the country down for the next 14 days. Mayor Ganem, which is here in Bridgeport, Connecticut, he's been calling for a 24-hour lockdown. Other people have been making mentions of it every now and then, that hey, we should go on a 24-hour lockdown for 2 weeks. They're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. It's happening in Barbados. It's going on in Antigua and Barbudas, and now there's another island where there's also a lockdown going on. And this one happened earlier in This happened back in the end of March. But again, the U.S. news is not really covering this. I haven't seen nothing on the U.S. news, CNN, or nothing like that dealing with this. But it says here, COVID-19, Prime Minister Harris announces 24-hour curfew for St. Kitts and the islands of Nevis. So the island of St. Kitts uh, and Nevis, they're on a 24-hour lockdown. So let me read down about this. So again, you still think that we crazy? You still think that we're conspiracy theorists? You still want to call us fear mongers? Hey, Yahweh Shem Yahushua is not playing. He's using this man to push this thing. He's working on the minds of this man to push this thing and make it go. All right. St. Kitts and Nevis has tightened restrictions in an attempt to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. Last night, Monday, March 30th. So again, this was earlier in the week. So this is before Antigua and Barbados or Barbados, if it's pronounced that way, went on their lockdown, and this is before Barbados went on their 24-hour, 14-day, 24-hour lockdown to April 14th. These two islands on Monday, which was the 30th, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris announced that effective today, Tuesday, March 31st, which that was about maybe 4 days ago, citizens will be forced to adhere to a 24-hour curfew, despite a clear statement that citizens must stay at home except in limited situations. Prime Minister Harris said a number of individuals chose to blatantly disregard the regulations put in place to slow the virus and protect the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Because of this, he said, the Cabinet of Ministers has determined that after consultation with the police high command, the National COVID-19 Working Group, the Chief Medical Officer, and the Medical Chief of Staff of the JNF General Hospital, that there be a 24-hour curfew, a total lockdown from 7 p.m. Tuesday, the 31st of March, to 6 a.m. Friday, April 3rd. So they already done went through that. In the first instance, it means that the current regulations will be repealed and new regulations made in which no one except the security forces and other security personnel, the healthcare officers, technical emergency officers of utilities, including telecoms and media personnel, will be allowed out of their residences. Look at that. They're on 24-hour lockdown. The announcement came just 2 days after the Prime Minister declared a 14-day state of emergency. Prime Minister Harris, he's the Prime Minister for St. Kitts and Nevis, I believe. We will not hesitate to prosecute those found in breach of the emergency powers regulations. We are in a war and we must win. Together we must be united, with all of us doing our part to ensure our safety, that our families, communities, and by extension, our beloved country. This is not a time for reckless behavior. Sober, responsible behavior is essential. On the issue of food, he said there is no need for impulsive buying as there is an adequate supply of food on hand. Boom. So listen, basically we in the shit. We knee deep in the shit. Like Mr. Sim said, let's get knee deep in the shit. So now let me hit this scripture here. This is 2nd Ezra 15 and 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. So this is the time that we're in right now. This is the time that we're in right now. And all three of these articles, I'm going to put the links in the description box for each one of these articles so you can go and read them in their entirety. And a lot of you brothers out there will probably do your own thing on it. But this was a quick thing I wanted to put up concerning the gravity of the situation of what's going on. These islands have locked down. This is the islands of Barbados, Antigua and Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis. This is 5 islands that are on 24-hour lockdown. Barbados is on the longest 24-hour lockdown. They're on lockdown till April 14th. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And with that, I'm gonna say shalom until the next one. On to you brothers out there, keep them prayers up to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Like as Apostle Ricard says, keep your medicine strong, and the Most High is gonna get us through this. And you know, say it's a rough patch coming, and through the Spirit of the Lord give us the strength to be able to stand in those times and make it through that test and get on and make it to the other side, which is the kingdom. So with that, I'm gonna say shalom.